the groom who was carried, and in the silent year of the Dragon 95, his heart skipped a beat. He knew this mission had failed. The intelligence was wrong. No one had told him that Chen Fan's groom was a level 9 cultivator. Seeing there was no chance for him to act now, he lay motionless against the cliff face, preparing to wait until Lon 995 and the others left. Then he would stay here. Just then, the voice suddenly rang out by his ear. Before Lon 9 entered the canyon, his breathing had faltered. The leading man's face instantly changed drastically. His mind went completely blank. He felt the chill at the back of his neck. No matter which direction he fled, that chill would directly slice across his neck. He could no longer control his breathing rhythm. Struggling to lift his head and look above him, he saw on the cliff face above a young man hanging directly over him, their heads only a foot apart, the dagger in his hand precisely placed against his neck. When did he appear here? The man knew he was already doomed. At this moment, he could only look at the other with full reluctance and despair. I found you the moment your breathing faltered. Chao Qiu smiled and handed a pill to the man to swallow. Tell me the information I want to know, and I'll give you a quick death later. We're in the same line of work. You should know our methods. The man said nothing more. He just resignedly swallowed the pill Chao Qiu handed down. Then he dropped from the cliff face to the canyon floor. Standing still, he looked down at the top. But in this line of work, once discovered, it means death. He didn't expect to survive. But just as that man said, he could have a quick end. It's all here. Chen Fan slowly stepped down from the Dragon I-95, leaning on his emerald staff, working down slowly. He looked at the ground, at the pool of blood and the strange fate lying in it, and at the he-man standing ahead. Chao Qiu stepped forward to report. No other hidden assassins remain. Chen Fan, looking at the he-man standing beside Chao Qiu, he said softly, next, I'll ask you some questions. I've already questioned your accomplices in the carriage. If even one thing doesn't match, I won't ask you again. Someone else will personally attend to you. Which city are you from? Where is your base? Who planned this assassination? What was the target? The he-man didn't hesitate at all before speaking. He had accepted his fate. He asked for nothing else, only to suffer less before death. We're from the Wind and Rain Pavilion, a pure assassin organization. Our main source of income on ordinary days is taking on missions issued by other factions. Bounties. The one who planned this assassination was the young master of the Wind and Rain Pavilion. I was in charge of leading the team, and the assassination target was you. I don't know the specific reason for the assassination, but as far as I know, this wasn't a bounty mission. It was an order from the Pavilion Master of the Wind and Rain Pavilion. The next moment, suddenly, black blood spilled from the man's mouth. Black lines appeared on his chest, spreading rapidly in all directions. He tried to say more, but his body had already gone completely stiff. He fell heavily backward. After the main sea, he turned into a pool of foul-smelling, tainted blood around him. The other assassins who hadn't yet died also dropped dead, turning into tainted blood. Master of the prison, leave this to me. I'll handle this matter. The dark chamber needs a blood-soaked operation to truly grow up. Staying in the nurturing forest pavilion cultivating every day, no matter how fast the cultivation speed, without practical experience, it's all in vain. The next moment, what? A voice suddenly rang out by his ear, an incredulous, loud shout. Seeing Kai Yuan, who usually had a calm expression, his eyes were full of shock. Only then did he come to his senses, lowering his head and murmuring, could this be right? This is right. I was just saying how come the weekend cultivation was so fast. At this moment, Chao Qiu also realized belatedly that he seemed to have let something slip. Kneeling on one knee, his face full of guilt and anger. Please punish me, Master of Desires. Chen Fan let out a light sigh and waved his hand. It's fine. Kai Yu isn't an outsider. This matter, I originally planned to tell him as a surprise. See, you ruin it, didn't I? Leave this to your dark chamber. Set out immediately. First, prove the Wing and Rain Pavilions. Chop station in other cities. See how the other side reacts. Find their island base if possible. Understood. Chao Qiu nodded firmly, then stepped back a few paces and vanished swiftly into the shadows. Kai Yu, get in the carriage and follow me. I've prepared a gift for you. Inside the breeding camp's main hall, Chen Fan led Kai Yu into the Rhyme Spirit Pavilion. The moment Kai Yu saw the Rhyme Spirit Pavilion, his breathing involuntarily quickened. He had only heard of the Rhyme Spirit Pavilion in legends. It was said to be a higher existence than training chambers. Soon, Chen Fan bore Kai Yu deep into the Jade Spirit Pavilion, stopping before a wall. He gazed at a bamboo slip hanging in the air by a hemp rope. The bamboo slip, its surface carved with chaotic sword energy forming the words daily record. At first glance, it seemed ordinary, but looking again, one could feel the spiritual power imbued in the strokes. The sword energy whispered softly, I know you have someone you must kill. I won't stop you. This past month, you've trained at home every day. On weekends, they've improved quickly. You are a cultivator. This is my gift to you. Don't touch it with your hands. But the words came too late. Tai Yu, upon seeing that bamboo slip, fell into a daze instantly. As if bewitched, he involuntarily reached out to touch it. The next moment, Kai Yu's entire body was flung backward heavily. shooting out of the Rhine Spirit Pavilion in the blink of an eye, leaving behind a mist of blood and scattered flesh before vanishing. He landed straight into the altar. Chen Fan, expressionless, looked toward the Rhine Spirit Pavilion. A long trail of blood was left on the floor. He strode out of the Rhine Spirit Pavilion. "Can't be dead, right? Brother, you really touched it with your hand." His emerald handguard gave him a defense, equivalent to a third-grade city wall, and he couldn't block it. This one hit. "Do you think your body is tougher than a third-grade city wall?" Inside the altar, Caillou had already fallen unconscious. Chen Fan pinched Caillou's arm and shook it. The feel was excellent. All the bones were shattered. The skin was completely split open. Shaking it felt like boneless chicken feet. Don't shake, stop shaking." Caillou, lying in the altar, struggled to open his eyes. His voice carried intense pain and weakness. Chen Fan said, "You're really lucky." He put down the arm and looked at Caillou, unable to help but sigh. "You stained my altar red, damn it. Didn't I tell you not to touch it? If you had landed just a bit off, not in the altar, I wouldn't have been able to save you in time. I want to join the breeding." At this moment, under the replenishment of the holy water, Caillou's injuries were rapidly healing. The process of healing was extremely painful. This was a thoroughly complete comminuted fracture. Every bone in his body had shattered into pieces. Now they were constantly reforming. Chen Fan raised an eyebrow. He had always hoped Caillou would join the breeding. After all, having such a high level cultivated would make many things much easier. But Caillou had always had a gnat in his heart that hadn't been resolved, so Chen Fan hadn't brought it up. He planned to invite Caillou after he had killed his target. He never expected Caillou to take the initiative. "Well, I'll think it over. Then can I still study that bamboo slip?" "Breeding members can study it infinitely. Outsiders only get one chance. You've already used yours." At this moment, Caillou's injuries had mostly recovered. He struggled to get up and knelt in the altar, his voice hoarse. "Master of Desires, I sincerely want to join the breeding. Just now, I vaguely grasped a hint of insight. I want to break through to Martial King. Sever the first half of my life, begin a new life. Get up, get up." Chen Fang quickly stepped forward to help Caillou stand up. Smiling, he said, "Have you thought it through? I'll join you. First, heal your injuries. Once healed, slowly comprehend. 100 ghost stones, 200 ghost stones, 300 ghost stones." Chen Fan stood in Yunlin Pavilion, inside, expressionless, staring into the void. At this sight, an hour had passed since Caillou joined Fanyu. He was very happy. Fanyu could recruit such an expert, but was this guy consuming too many ghost stones? Caillou's exact words were, "When Sword Kai rages inside the body, rushing and colliding everywhere, that's when comprehension is fastest." So Caillou turned into a self-torturer, lying in the altar, constantly touching the main artifact with his hand. Then his bones and tendons shattered inch by inch, blood and flesh mangled. He lay in the altar to heal. After healing, he continued touching. He built a new altar for Caillou in Yunling Pavilion. Inside, plus, Yunling Pavilion enhanced comprehension, making the speed even faster. He didn't know how fast Caillou's comprehension was, but he knew it was very costly in ghost stones. Caillou was a level 9 cultivator. Healing injuries naturally consumed more sacred water than others, especially with such exaggerated injuries. Only Caillou could comprehend like this. If anyone else tried this method, they'd die on the spot. No chance to even heal. "Bro, seriously?" Chen Fan stood by the altar, his face full of emotion. "How much of a grudge do you hold? Is it worth this much? Doesn't it hurt?" "Pert." Again, Jingdu village segment. Inside the altar, Caillou murmured dazedly. "But it's worth it. No one in this life has ever helped me. You're the first person to help me. Once this matter is over, I'll repay your kindness with my whole life. Then I'll marry Ganyang Yu." "All right," Chen Fan clicked his tongue. "Take your time comprehending. I'll head out first." "Don't rush. Prison master, look at this move of mine." Caillou struggled to crawl out of the altar again, his eyes mixed with excitement and fervor. "I've already comprehended a sword technique, one move. It's my own creation, Yuju. Take a look." "So fast." Fanyu's a cheat. Caillou stood before the rock wall, a 3-foot Qingfeng sword in hand, no starting stance, just closed his eyes. His breathing became extremely light and long, as if merging himself into the rock wall. The next moment, Qingfeng thrust out, without any sharpness, more like a trembling brush. Qingfeng touched the rock without explosive debris. Spiritual energy converged, emitting a very low hiss, like a hot knife cutting through butter. Then the rock wall, a smooth groove about half an inch deep, appeared. Chen Fan, watching from the side, vaguely fell. Caillou wasn't like a northern old demon, but more like a scholar wielding a brush. Then, Caillou's wrist vibrated at a frequency imperceptible to the naked eye. Qingfeng rapidly thrust into the rock wall, each time leaving an extremely fine and deep round hole. Qingfeng suddenly shifted from fast to slow, as if weighing 1,000 jun. It dragged slowly across the rock wall. For the final stroke, he poised his wrist for a long time. Qingfeng didn't touch the rock wall, just traced in the air, yet it left the heaviest stroke, and the two characters on the rock wall, Chen Fan. Chen Fan stared expressionlessly at the rock wall, at the two characters Caillou had carved. After a long silence, he said hoarsely, "Teacher says, I don't really think carving my name on the rock wall is a very auspicious thing. Why didn't you carve your own name?" That may be so, but he could clearly feel the power of this sword technique, the strength of this rock wall. He had used a 5G cannon to blast it, and barely made a small pit after a while. In other words, this sword technique already had the power of a 5G cannon. It truly cannot be underestimated. At this moment of joy, he finally opened his eyes to look at the rock wall before him. The man lowered his head in excitement, gazing at the confeng in his hand. "This is the first sword technique I've comprehended. Its power far exceeds any martial skill I've practiced before. Jade Lord, where did you obtain this bamboo slip?" "It was left behind by a senior who cultivated here." Good. After taking a deep breath, Caillou's expression turned solemn. "If that's the case, then this self-created first sword technique of mine shall be named Diary. This sword technique is called the Qiyu Sword Art." Qiyu Sword Art, first form, Diary. Chen Fan's face remained expressionless as he was silent for a long time. He then whispered, "Maybe we should change the name. Is this name not good?" Since the senior spared no effort in releasing Sword Kai to carve the word diary on an ordinary bamboo slip, there must be a deeper meaning. There must be something I haven't grasped. "Fine, then take your time pondering it." He couldn't be bothered to say more, and strode straight out of the canyon. He had to go to Mortal City to check on how his business was doing. "Oh right." He suddenly stopped in his tracks, turning to look at Caillou. "Later, go to the canyon entrance and erase the two characters Fine when carved on the mountain wall. Replace them with Fine U. Write it nicely. Use that diary sword technique of yours." Then, without lingering any longer, he strode toward the 95 dragon carriage and left the camp. Inside the camp, Chao Qiu stuffed the dozen or so tokens crafted by Zyro Qiu all into his chest. He looked back at the subordinates he had trained over these days. He swung himself back onto the horse. With a wave of his hand, he declared, "This is the first mission of the Dark Pavilion. Only success is allowed, no failure." Meanwhile, Chen Fan returned to a house on the side of Fan Yu Street. Inside a building, he strode over to Wang Kui, who was keeping accounts, and said casually, "Have you found a suitable bookkeeper yet? You can't be stuck here keeping accounts every day, can you?" Wang Kui, sitting at the table, hesitated for a moment, then spoke up. "These past couple of days, I actually did find a suitable candidate." "Is it someone from our Fan Yu faction?" "Who?" "Ganyang Yu, the only daughter of the Ganyang clan." Chen Fan's face turned expressionless as he said, "Are you crazy? Would you rather have the clan head of the Ganyang family come keep our accounts? Besides, all his thoughts are on Caillou. How could he have the leisure to keep accounts?" "Then I'll keep looking. Don't rush, take your time." Just then, suddenly, the lame monkey limped over quickly, bent down, and whispered in his ear, "Young master." An old man in tattered clothes suddenly appeared at the city gate. He looks like a Kyra Finner, but he won't enter the city. He just stands at the city gate. By now, he's drawn quite a crowd. Did he say what level of Kyra Finner he is? He didn't say a word, but judging by his demeanor, it doesn't seem low. "Come with me to see for myself." A moment later, Chen Fan and his group worked out of Fan City's gate, looking at the dirty old man standing at the entrance. Their gazes lingered on the banner, and they murmured softly, "The flame of Kai never dies," seeking a good tree to perch on. A broken sword, for new shelter. The horizontal inscription read, "Selling one's life in chaotic times." Chen Fan worked up to the old man in tattered clothes, and asked aloud. The old man's eyelids drooped. Without lifting his head, he pulled a beggar's chicken from his chest, tore off a drumstick, stuffed it into his mouth, grease dripping, juice covering his hands. He sneered without any regard for appearances. "I've long forgotten my name. I only know the world gave me a title, something like Jandan Bray's master." The next moment, suddenly, exclamations erupted from the crowd. "Oh my god, it's actually the Jandan Bray's master," it said. He was once a high-level Kyra Finner from the Guangxi Plains. Later, he settled in Jiangdong, established his own faction. Every spirit treasure he forged is top-notch. Indeed, I never thought I'd see the Jiangdan master here. I heard that any spirit treasure the Jiangdan Bray's master forges can sell for a high price. Voices kept rising from all corners of the crowd. HMPH. The old man standing by the mountain, leaning against the railing, sneered. "Just some common names from the martial world. Nothing worth mentioning." He said nothing more. Just then, Jumo led people out from within the city gates. He strode over to Chen Fan's side. In a low voice, he reported a piece of news into Chen Fan's ear. Chen Fan's expression gradually turned strange. He looked at the old man sitting cross-legged on the ground. After hearing the intelligence Jumo had gathered, he suddenly realized he had somewhat underestimated the people of this world. "So your purpose in coming here is to join the Prosperity sect?" "Not exactly." The old man shook his head. He spat out the chicken bone from his mouth. Lying lazily on the ground, he said, "I heard the Prosperity sect has been making waves lately. I came to see what kind of person sect Master Chen is. Having met you today, you're not bad. A Kyra Finner has to sell his life to some faction anyway. The old faction I was with disbanded due to poor management. If Sect Master Chen can offer a decent price for my life, staying here isn't out of the question. But Sect Master Chen, you only get one chance to make an offer. If the price isn't right, I won't listen a second time. The price is this. Chen Fan suddenly smiled. Come inside with me. I'll give you a price privately. One you won't be able to refuse. How about it? Fine. The old man flipped up from the ground like a carp. He followed behind Chen Fan into Fan City. Chen Fan sat on a chair inside a room in Fan City, holding a cup of hot tea. Chen Fan looked at the ragged old man standing in the room. After a long pause, he let out a laugh. May I ask, senior, what level Kyra Finner are you exactly? Level 9. Good. Chen Fan smiled and nodded. A level 9 Kyra Finner. Finally, that batch of goblins. Now they have a master to forge them. Didn't you just say? I only had one chance to make an offer. If this price doesn't suit you, you turn around and leave on the spot, right? Now, I'll give you a price. Kneel down within 3 breaths and join the prosperity sect, where you die. The old man standing in the room. His tattered clothes reeked of stench. Hearing this, his face instantly darkened. Sect Master Chen, do you think my title, Jiangdan Braze Master, was handed to me for nothing? Or do you think a level 9 Kyra Finna like me is so easy to manipulate? Do you really want to fight to the death with me? 1. Chen Fan. The old man spoke with anger, word by word. If this gets out, how will the world view the prosperity sect? 2. Sect Master Chen. Before his words faded, pretend I never came today. Chen Fan simply lifted his teacup and took a light sip. He waved his hand casually. Jumo, standing beside him, drew his blade without expression, ready to move. Thump. Before Chen Fan had even fully uttered the word 3, the old man had already knelt down cleanly on the spot. With a respectful and solemn face, he said, Jiangdan Raju pays respects to Sect Master Chen. Please take care of me from now on. Chen Fan looked at the old man kneeling on the ground. The next moment, he smiled and said casually, bring them in. Jumo's men escorted over a dozen people inside. These dozen people had different appearances, but if one had observed carefully at the city gate earlier, they would have noticed that these dozen people were the ones who had been loudly boasting about how impressive Jiangdan Braze Master was, how impressive his skills were. Seeing the old man kneeling on the ground, these dozen people immediately lowered their heads in shame. We were very careful, but we were still found out. Worthless trash. The old man, finally realizing what had happened, glared angrily at the dozen people. So that's why things went wrong. Even such a small matter can be botched. A bunch of useless fools. I've raised you all this long, might as well have raised livestock. Then he turned to Chen Fan, scratching his head with an awkward, cheapish smile. Well, Sect Master Chen, what do we do now? Should we head down? Only Chen Fan and the old man remained in the room. At this point, the old man dropped his act, though embarrassment was written all over his face. He stood straight as a rod, like a pine tree bearing its sinewy muscles to the open air, his lines exuding a brutal aesthetic of power. This was an old man built entirely of muscle knots. Got a name this time? I do. The old man, a bit awkward, said, Zhao Shengting. Tell me, why put on this whole show? This boy's emotions were unstable. You came here for finding you from the start. Why not just get straight to the point? The old man scratched his head, muttering, as they say, even good wine fears a deep alley. If I came right out and said I wanted to join Fanyu, wouldn't that make me look too cheap? I figured I'd add some flair to get a better price. The flair you're talking about is this getup. Do you usually dress like this? Chen Fan leaned back in his chair, sizing up the old man's outfit from head to toe. Not usually. The old man shook his head firmly. As a Kyra Finner, wearing this makes it hard to even swing a hammer. I only have 2 hobbies in normal times. One of them is going to the tea house to listen to stories. In those picture books, the reclusive masters always look scruffy and disheveled, and concerned with trivialities, so I figured I'd get myself a set of clothes like that, to look like a reclusive master. Then I even found you a bunch of stooges to sing my praises. Chen Fang couldn't help but laugh. To taught you all this. Actually, I had another script, but I didn't use it. Let's hear it. The other script was, after I arrived in Fencheng, I had my disciple pretend to be from other factions, so several factions would frantically court me, offering me sky-high prices, to make you, Chen Yuzhu, see how sought after I was. But after thinking it over, I didn't use it. Why does that script sound more interesting? Well, I was a bit worried you, Chen Yuzhu, might wipe out all those factions. I think you might have some misunderstandings about Fanyu. So, you were clearly set on joining Fanyu from the start, weren't you? Tell me your reasons for wanting to join. The wrinkles on Zhao Shengting's face rippled, like ocean waves a few times, before he spoke seriously. First, Faniyu's rise has been fast enough, the fastest I've ever seen any faction grow. I believe Faniyu will achieve great things in the future. Second, I learned that Faniyu currently has no Kai refiner. If I join early enough, and as a 9th level Kai refiner, I might be able to take charge of Faniyu's Kai refining division. Third, I really like your style, Chen Yuzhu. Kill the Dan sect's young master in one day, annihilate the entire Dan sect the next. I feel that working under you, Chen Yuzhu, will be very satisfying in the future. How much do you want? How about 500 ghost stones a month as pay? The old man hesitated for a moment before stammering, that little. Chen Fan raised an eyebrow. He was genuinely surprised. A 9th level Kai refiner, someone capable of founding their own sect, taking only 500 ghost stones a month. How was that any different from getting it for free? Chen Fan stood up and helped Zhao Shengting to his feet, laughing as he said, "Let Kwehu take you back. Go change your clothes. Later, when it gets dark, I'll take you to Faniyu. By the way, about 7 years ago, did you just abandon your old faction in Jiangdan? Jingying went bankrupt and closed down." Dud. Chen Fan sat in the empty room, gazing at Zhao Shengting being led away by Kwehu. Watching Zhao Shengting being taken away by the lame marquis, my eyes narrowed slightly. A 9th level Kai refiner suddenly showing up to pledge allegiance. He was naturally delighted. It could solve many of his problems. To be on the safe side, Chen Fan still used a sound transmission talisman to have Xianxia investigate his background. After confirming Zhao Shengting's record was clean, he didn't linger. He returned to the camp. Inside the cave, he built a Kai refining workshop, which he upgraded straight to level 3. But when he tried to upgrade that wooden hut to level 4, a familiar yet different panel appeared before him. Wooden house upgraded to level 4. As a stone house, it is more sturdy. Please choose an upgrade direction. Life Skills Workshop can produce daily use items. 2. Alchemy Workshop can refine pills by refining ghost talents. Requires an alchemist to oversee operations. The Weather Pavilion has already undergone qualitative transformation. Spirit treasures can be forged by employing forging prodigies and the like. A refiner must be stationed here. Puden did not hesitate at all. He didn't even carefully read the third option. Whether it was the qualitative transformation upgrade path for Kai refining defensive techniques, he directly selected it and prepared to upgrade again, to acquire as many upgrade paths as possible. However, the upgrade failed. Upgrading to level 5 requires consuming 5,000 ghost stones and seaweed. *1 seaweed again. Chen Fan sighed lightly. Forget it. Then he carefully looked at the qualitative transformation direction and smiled. Although it was only an ordinary qualitative transformation upgrade path, he was already quite satisfied. He looked at the Weather Pavilion's panel. Building name Wei. The pavilion building grade white. Building level 4. Building effect 1. Increased success rate for forging spirit treasures. Effect 2. Low chance of receiving heaven and earth's blessing. Spirit treasures forged here will automatically rise by 1 grade. Upgrading to level 5 requires consuming 5,000 ghost stones and seaweed. Signal 1 not bad. Chen Fan smiled. After finishing all this, after building 4 more level 3 stone huts nearby, he took out a sound transmission talisman. Bring Zhao Shengting over. At that moment, the Jade Token's owner, Zhao Sheng, King had already shed his tattered beggar's clothes and changed into a linen robe, looking at Chen Fan with a serious expression. He said respectfully, "This Weather Pavilion is yours from now on. This is a special building. It can increase the success rate, and there is a low chance that spirit treasures forged inside will rise by 1 grade. Weather Pavilion. Zhao Shengping was slightly stunned. In my lifetime, I never thought I'd be able to stay in a Weather Pavilion again. This is already the best white grade Kai refining building. There are better ones. Chen Fan raised an eyebrow. I've never heard of a Kai refining building among green grades, but there is a yellow grade Kai refining building called the 10,000 Guests Pavilion. Its effect is very strong. Have you used it? I've only heard of it. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. At this moment, Zyro Kyu worked over carrying a pile of clothes and tokens. Introduce yourself. He took the clothes from Zyro Kyu's arms and said, Zyro Kyu, the master of the logistics pavilion. If you have any daily logistical matters, you can come to him. After nightfall, the core members of the sect will return to camp. Zuhu will take you to meet everyone then. The sect had no refiner before today. Today, the artifact pavilion is established. The batch of disciples behind you will join the artifact pavilion with you. You are the first master of the artifact pavilion. Chen Fan took the token from his bosom, symbolizing the status of pavilion master. There is a batch of goblin materials in the warehouse. I need you to forge them into daggers suitable for the shadow pavilion, and night robes. For now, forge 13 sets. Before he finished speaking, he suddenly felt his throat blocked by a surge of air, unable to utter a single word. He saw Kai Yu standing on the ground of the pit, clad in a light robe, with eyes tightly shut. At that moment, his robe fluttered without wind, and the miniature breeze swirling around him began vibrating at high frequency, emitting a buzzing sound. The next moment, spiritual energy surged violently from Caillou's body, transforming into dozens of swords formed from spiritual energy. Then, these sword energies shot toward Caillou at extreme speed. A tearing sound of flesh being cut could be faintly heard. This was exactly 10,000 arrows piercing the heart. Each sword energy pierced through his body, and each piercing brought out wisps of black mist, though no blood dripped. From Caillou's twisted and agonized expression, one could tell what immense pain he was enduring at that moment. The commotion alerted Chen Fan and the others inside the cave, and they all came out. This is the 10,000 arrows body purification. This person is breaking through to Martial King. Dao Shengping immediately assessed the situation, somewhat panicked and flustered. This is a special method for breaking through to Martial King. The risk factor is extremely high. One can only succeed by enduring the 10,000 arrows body purification to break through to Martial King. But those sword kai, though they won't cause external wounds, while cleansing impurities from the body, will bring immense pain to the spirit. Ordinary people simply cannot endure it. The outcome is to become like Xi Jinfeng. With a crackle, a streak of sword kai pierced straight toward Qiu's posterior yin point and emerged from the interior yin crown. Everyone present couldn't help but shudder instinctively, covering their own crotches. After one instant stick's time, there was no sign of stopping. The sword kai grew more numerous, one streak after another, continuously pierced through Qiu's body in succession. Qiu's expression grew increasingly ferocious. Clearly, enduring this pain was no easy task. Chen Fan stood silent and expressionless, saying nothing. All he could do now was pray for Qiu. Just then, he suddenly furrowed his brows and looked toward the canyon, seeing a carriage staggering along the canyon toward the heavenly pit. The carriage surface was already pitted and scarred, of the 3 skeletal horses originally pulling it, only one remained now. Eternal night had already fallen. This carriage had charged from the return grounds into eternal night, arriving at the breeding grounds. Though the distance between the 2 points wasn't far, it was still eternal night, filled with ghostly dwellings that were unknown and savage. He didn't open fire, but simply let the carriage rush to the heavenly pit and slowly come to a stop. Then he looked at Ganyang Yu sitting on the carriage, said softly, "Elder Ganyang is a night watcher. Entering the breeding grounds without any notice is hardly a friendly act." Ganyang Yu, with an awkward expression, replied helplessly, "Lord Chen Yu, this sudden intrusion into the Ganyang clan will surely be compensated with an apology. But you should know about Qiu and my young lady's matter." After sensing the pain Qiu was enduring, he went mad to come to the breeding grounds. "If I didn't accompany him, he would have come alone. I truly couldn't rest easy." Ganyang Yu leaped down from the carriage, first, with a face full of apology, hastily apologized to Chen Fan, then stood aside with eyes full of heartache, watching Qiu pierced by 10,000 arrows. At that moment, Ganyang Yu looked at Qiu, whose body was riddled with 10,000 arrows. Suddenly a flicker of shock passed through his eyes. The demon cultivator's 10,000 arrows piercing the heart and body refinement. "May I ask, Lord Yu, how long has it been ongoing?" "1 instant stick." "That's good." Ganyang Yu breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. It seems Qiu has successfully endured it. When he smoothly breaks through to Martial King, an hour passed. Chen Fan and the others had all fallen asleep. Only Qiu and Ganyang Yu stood in the heavenly pit. Everyone else was asleep. After all, they had to get up and work tomorrow. Another 2 hours passed. By midnight, the canyon was extremely quiet. Only the heavenly pit occasionally emitted the piercing sound of sword kai passing through, and this sound finally slowed down. The surrounding sword kai gradually faded. His feet were piled with black filthy water. Qiu, who had stood with eyes shut the whole time, slowly opened his eyes. The moment he opened them, he saw Ganyang Yu, standing on tiptoes right in front of him. He couldn't help but be slightly startled, instinctively turning his head to look at the canyon. He remembered that when he started his breakthrough, it was already dark. At that time, Ganyang Yu wasn't at the breeding grounds. Where did this old monster come from? "Are you alright?" Ganyang Yu, ignoring that Qiu's body was covered in sweat and filth, threw herself into Qiu's arms. Her voice choked with tears. "Why do you have to be so hard on yourself? Did you really have to use 10,000 arrows body refinement to break through to Martial King? Wasn't 99% enough?" Qiu let out a long breath. He could feel that his body was now extremely refreshed. He had completed the 10,000 arrows body refinement, something that, in his past view, was completely impossible. He didn't reply. He merely stroked the ram's head and turned to look at Chen Fan standing on the city wall. He knelt on one knee to thank the Jade Lord. That Qiu could reach today's heights was all thanks to the Jade Lord's bestowed opportunities. "Once I have avenged my great grievance, from now on, through fire and water, I shall follow the Jade Lord's command." Chen Fan stood on the city wall, gazing down at this scene. He nodded lightly and said nothing more, leaving the time to those two. He was going back to sleep. A short while later, after washing up, Kyu sat inside the room, sensing the power within his body. He had already broken through to Martial King, becoming the first 10th level cultivator in Fanyu. Entering the 10th level would bring earth-shattering changes, but after all, he had only just broken through. His cultivation base was unstable. Tomorrow, he needed to intensify training to stabilize his cultivation. Meanwhile, in Jan and Warda City, the night watchman's clapper had just fallen. Several figures, like raindrops falling into the sea, rushed out from various alleys and streets, surrounding a punch. Chaekyu, lurking in the shadows, watched this scene and nodded with slight satisfaction. This month's training had not been in vain. This covert operation was already showing results. The target tonight was this punch ahead. It was a shop set up by the Wind and Rain Pavilion in Warda City. Number 1 and Number 2, silent, 2 members of the Shadow Chamber who received the order. One of them pressed close to the wall, quickly approaching the punch. Standing by the window, he flicked his wrist lightly. Two thin jade slips slid through the window gap, landing without a sound. In the first floor at the counter, the two men, still working through the night, first stiffened, then their expressions changed drastically, but before they could react, the fawn-like thin jade slips had already burst open, turning into a white mist that was inhaled into their bellies. Soon, they fell unconscious to the ground. From upstairs in the punch came a crane-like call. Clearly, they had heard the sound of someone falling downstairs. The voice was filled with vigilance, and the faint stirring sounds from the stable in the backyard also instantly fell silent. Yet two others climbed up to the second-floor window. In their hands, emerald poison needles as fine as ox hair were suddenly shot through the window into the room. Inside the second floor, the man who had spoken earlier, with a frown between his brows, slowly collapsed. The stable in the backyard was the trickiest. 6 people were hiding there. Upon hearing the noise from the first floor, they instantly woke from their sleep and entered a state of alert. However, before the few hiding in the stable could react, arc-shaped shadow blade shot out from the darkness. In the blink of an eye, these 6 fell without even seeing anyone. Thus, in just the time it takes to say Kixi, a secret stronghold of the Wind and Rain Pavilion, was completely eradicated. Chaeki worked over to the counter, speaking to the 2 unconscious men on the ground. Give these 2 the antidote. Begin the interrogation. The rest search for anything valuable. Looking back at the copper pipes connected one after another behind the vehicle, all valuable items had already been taken away. The 2 unconscious men were revived. After the interrogation, they were also silenced with a single sword stroke to the throat. Before leaving, Chaekyu, with a serious expression and the stone slab inside the room, used the blood of the dead to draw a very simple pattern, a short blade wrapped in shadows. This was the emblem he designed for the Shadow Chamber. Then from his bosom, he took out a token that Xianxia had forged before he left and placed it aside. This was for the Shadow Chamber, a specially crafted Shadow Chamber pursuit token. He wanted everyone in Fanyu to know the name of the Shadow Chamber. Then he looked at the parchment in his hand and murmured softly, "Seaweed." I remember the Jade Lord once mentioned that he needed this heavenly treasure, seaweed. From the intelligence, he learned that the Wind and Rain Pavilion had recently obtained a heavenly treasure. Seaweed was being urgently transported to their headquarters. This news could not be reported to the Jade Lord, but at this moment, they were far from Fanyu, beyond the maximum transmission range of the sound transmission talisman. So Chaekyu decided the group would first find a place to rest for the night and act the next day. Time passed quickly. 5 days had gone by. At this moment, there is only 1 day left until the breeding auction. Tomorrow is the day the breeding auction will be held. Chen Fan, staying within Fencheng, listened to Wang Qi's report beside him. Chen Fan stretched lazily, reclining languidly in his chair. Listened to Wang Qi's report beside him. Still no word from Chaekyu and the others. No, the stations they've set up these days are all famous battle sites. Each station flies the banner of breeding. If Chaekyu saw them, he would surely contact us through the people at the stations. But we still haven't reached the prison master. Wang Qi hesitated for a moment before speaking hesitantly. Sect Master Q may have already fled with his men. No, Chen Fan said, quite confident in this Taoist priest, smiling as he added, his dream can only be fulfilled by me. Only I can help him reach the highest peak. Just then, prison master. A sudden urgent voice came through the sound transmission talisman. It was Xianxia. Sect Master Zhao has been half-killed by Weiwei's tail slap. Chen Fan rushed back in a hurry, looking at Zhao Shengting, who lay half-dead in the altar, and at Weiwei, who was crouched on the ground with a face full of apology. Frowning, he asked, what happened? Weiwei never hurts anyone. I don't know either. Xianxia shook his head from the side. I was busy inside, when suddenly I heard a loud crash outside. I rushed out, and saw Zhao Shengping knocked unconscious by Weiwei's tail slap. You explain. Chen Fan turned to one of Zhao Shengping's disciples. Reporting to the prison master, the man said in a somewhat hushed voice, Master was forging the night worker, when he suddenly discovered that breeding actually had a devouring sky beast, a first-rate creature. He got excited right away. If, during the forging of the night worker, he could add one of the devouring sky beast scales, its defensive power would greatly increase. Then your master picked up his hammer and went up to it. Chen Fan couldn't help but laugh in anger. No. The man quickly shook his head. Master asked other breeding members, and learned that this beast was one of breeding's own. So he tried to communicate with it and ask, could I borrow a few scales from you? Beasts are very intelligent, it agreed. I swear I saw it nod. Then Master happily took out his chisel, ready to pry off a few scales. The moment he started, before he could even pry one off, it swung its tail. Chen Fan was silent for a long time, then turned his head to look at the devouring sky beast. You agreed. The devouring sky beast swayed its body, shook its head, then nodded, then it shook its head again. I understand. Chen Fan nodded lightly. You mean you're about to shed your scales? You agreed to lend him a few scales, but only after they shed naturally, not letting him pry them off right now. Wai Wei's eyes turned red, tears glistening as he nodded repeatedly. Finally, someone understood him. You're about to shed your scales. Chen Fan looked at Wai Wei. Eyes flickered with a trace of surprise. Roar. Wai Wei nodded heavily, letting out a few excited low growls. Impressive. He couldn't help but smile. Doesn't this mean Wai Wei's strength is about to increase again? Just then, Zhao Shengping slowly woke up, his eyes full of tears and grievance. Prison master, he really agreed. I was just guessing. You misunderstood. Chen Fan patted Zhao Shengping on the shoulder and said with emotion, he's going to shed his scales in the next few months. Wait until after the shedding to forge the night worker. Forge the gloves first. You should be glad he can recover from injuries now, and his vigilance isn't so high. If this were before and you tried to pry his scales, he would have swallowed you alive. Zhao Shengping nodded in grievance, but soon grew excited. Prison master, I never thought our breeding would have a devouring sky beast. Devouring sky beast? It's an extremely pure and standard combat type beast. All offense. Chen Fan's expression turned slightly odd as he glanced at Wai Wei. Pure combat type beast, meaning the devouring sky beast has no other abilities. But this guy's one slap nearly killed that immortal. He captured the inheritance light tomb left by the heavenly master and swallowed it into his stomach. This was clearly a special ability targeting formations and the like, so it wasn't the devourer's ability after all. Could it be? He vaguely understood something. The devourer originally couldn't heal its injuries. Maybe it wasn't a disease, just a genetic mutation. From a pure combat type being, it turned into one weak in battle, but exceptionally effective at destroying formations. The inability to heal was merely a side effect. After taking the Snow Lotus, the side effect vanished. Now it had become a devourer skilled at wrecking formations and possessing immense combat power. Chen Fan silently patted the devourer's head. Don't play, nothing to worry about. Meanwhile, on a rocky island in the Dead Sea, 3 old men sat around a stove inside a wooden hut, discussing how to deal with Fan Yuzhen and the burden of their failed assassination. Little did they know, beneath this rocky island, Chao Qiu was floating on the sea surface, clinging tightly to a protruding corner of the cliff. A dagger gleaming with cold light was held between his teeth. With a calm expression, he patiently waited. Through these past few days, from the clues gathered at the shop, he had finally found the main base of the Wind and Rain Pavilion, and what he intended to do was to make the name Xiao Qiu, after tonight, resound across Jiangbei. 2 hours later, no sound came from the entire island. Xiao Qiu, his whole body pressed flat against the cliff, released his right hand, pulled out a nose dagger, and quickly carved a special pattern into his left arm. Then he placed his index finger on the pattern. Defy the heavens. The next moment, his entire body seemed to merge completely with the cliff, utterly undetectable. He began climbing rapidly toward the island, striding deep into it. After a moment, he pushed open a door and entered a room. Inside, 6 burly men were sleeping. He stepped forward, like a shadow, peering beside the bed deepest in the room. Too poor in vigilance, Chao Qiu muttered silently to himself, sleeping like the dead. His left hand, light as a feather, covered the man's mouth and nose with extreme gentleness. His right hand drove the dagger upward from below. The burly man didn't even let out the faintest whimper before dying. He repeated the process in the second, then the third, his movements precise and mechanical. The 6th man in the room also fell by his hand. Soon, then he quietly withdrew from the room, restoring the door to its original state, and moved on to other rooms, until the eternal night receded like a tide, and the first pale rays of dawn spilled down. Chao Qiu, in a white robe stained with a few traces of blood, stood at the edge of the sea, playing with the dagger in his hand, gazing at the sunrise slowly rising on the distant horizon. A smile filled his face. One man, one night, single-handedly. The Wind and Rain Pavilion was erased. On the other side, in Fanyu, the night had grown deep. Tomorrow was the auction. Zhu Hu and the others were busy in the camp, making final preparations for the auction's arrival. As the next day dawned, Chen Fan stood on the wall, looking toward the city's interior. Just then, the transmission talisman in his bosom grew warm. He was slightly startled. A message from Xiao Qiu. The Wind and Rain Pavilion has been destroyed. A total of 78 core members, including the 3 pavilion masters, all captured alive. Numerous ghostly artifacts and heavenly treasures, including a stork of seaweed, are being brought back to Fenyu. Will arrive before nightfall. Chen Fan took a long breath before picking up the transmission talisman to contact Quan Hu, postpone the auction. Delay it until just before nightfall tonight. Chao Qiu and the others are almost back. Soon dusk approached. The auction, originally scheduled for the afternoon, was moved to the evening. Eternal night was about to descend, and the auction would soon begin. Chao Qiu led his men riding skeletal horses. Just then, striding grandly toward the city gate, the horses' flanks were laden with large and small bundles. The skeletal horse was laden with large and small bundles on both sides. It looks like a bountiful haul. The leader Qiu dismounted from his horse. In his hand, he carried a bundle stained with blood. He strode forward. Standing in the middle of the street, Chen Fan knelt on one knee. In a hoarse voice, he said, "Prison master. I, Qiu, chief of the Dark Pavilion, report. The target has been eliminated. All 78 core members of the Wind and Rain Tower have been dealt with. These are the heads of the 3 tower lords of the Wind and Rain Tower." "Withdraw," Chen Fan said softly. "Yes," Qiu replied. Before everyone's eyes, his body slowly dissolved into a wisp of black smoke, vanishing without a trace. The crowd instinctively looked around, but they discovered that the dozen or so people riding skeletal horses moments ago had vanished without a trace. Only a lone skeletal horse remained. Chen Fan expressionlessly withdrew his gaze. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly, but glancing at the looks in the crowd around him, he couldn't help but smile. The auction is about to begin. Everyone, please wait a moment. The gazes of the surrounding crowd were all fixed intently on the 4 heads on the ground. It was utterly silent. No one spoke. The air was filled only with rapid breathing, and the terrifying silence flowing from their eyes. The Wind and Rain Tower, renowned for many years, had thus been completely annihilated in an unnoticed corner. Now, the auction was about to begin. Chen Fan walked back into the house by the street. His eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the seaweed in his hand. Currently, in the camp, there were 2 buildings that could be upgraded with seaweed. One was the Spirit Nurturing Pavilion. The other was the Weather Pavilion. He planned to prioritize upgrading the former, to quickly enhance the cultivation of the breeding members. As for the latter, it was sufficient for now, and it was worth mentioning that, to upgrade the vehicle's offense and defense to level 6, another required material, he had just acquired one. After tonight's auction ends, he would return and upgrade the entire camp. On the other side, the auction officially began. The host was Wang Qi. The crowd gathered on both sides of the street. At the end of the street, a temporary stage had been set up. Wang Qi stood on it, a hammer in his hand, presiding over the auction. After several treasures of no value to Chen Fan were sold, finally, the auction was nearing its end. The last item for auction, the Architect Token, the treasure that turns an ordinary cultivator into an architect. Starting bid, 1,000 ghost stones. Each bid must increase by no less than 1,000 ghost stones. As soon as the words fell, immediately, a forest of bidding paddles rose from the crowd. The breeding member standing nearby, his mouth barely keeping up, frantically announced, "Jiandan Medicine King Valid bids 50,000. Jiangdan 1 Item Sect bids 70,000. Jianbei Chamber of Commerce bids 80,000. The price quickly soared to 120,000 ghost stones. This was already the foundation of many factions. Just then, a man from one faction pulled a spirit treasure from his bosom and strode toward him. "Lord Chen Yu, help me appraise this treasure. How much can this treasure of mine offset if used in the auction?" It was an already unsealed green-grade spirit treasure. Treasure name, Enhancement Stone. Treasure grade, green-grade treasure. In fact, using this enhancement stone on any building will ensure that during its next upgrade, it will inevitably undergo an ordinary qualitative change. Upgrade direction, good stuff. Chen Fan's face showed little expression, but inwardly he sighed. Indeed, everyone keeps their good items hidden and doesn't bring them out for sale. They all stash them away. He truly wanted this treasure. It could offset 20,000. He offered a sufficiently high price. That way, even if the man didn't win the bid, he planned to buy back this treasure at a high price after the auction ended. Even if it was just an ordinary qualitative change direction, he wanted it. The man nodded heavily. Raising the treasure in his hand, he announced loudly, 70,000 ghost stones plus 50,000 credit limit, and this treasure in hand, totaling 140,000 ghost stones. This was already a sufficiently high price, but more and more people came to him. They raised the price with various conditions, hoping to secure this medical treasure. The final price was driven up to 170,000 ghost stones. In the end, the Wang Klein won the bid. That was the same person who had just used a strengthened 1 billion treasure to offset 20,000 ghost stones. With that, the auction came to an end, but the eternal night had also descended. The various factions were temporarily unable to leave and return. They all found rooms at the inn to rest for the night. Chen Fan, however, was unaffected. He rode out on the 95 dragon year, charging into the eternal night, returning to the breeding grounds. Eternal night had descended. Chen Fan stood atop the wall, gazing into the eternal night, and the Lord's panel, a building blueprint. The divine cannon. This was a blueprint he had obtained a few days ago from the Sea Mother's inheritance. It was a building blueprint, green grade. This strengthening stone, he planned to use it on either the divine cannon or the city wall. Other buildings were not under consideration for now, but he had never built a divine cannon before. He would first check its effects. The next moment, countless phantom images of the divine cannon composed of white light appeared on the city wall. After absorbing the liquid from the shattered ghost stones, they slowly solidified. Then a panel popped up before him. The divine cannon has been upgraded to level 2. This building's upgrade offers no branching paths. Each upgrade increases its power, nor can any upgrade path be obtained through other means. Chen Fan felt a bit regretful. It seemed there was no need to agonize over whether to use the strengthening stone and the divine cannon or the city wall. The decision was made for him. As he consumed 2,000 ghost stones to upgrade it to level 5, the cannon barrel grew larger, its patterns denser, and it became covered in a fresh red hue. His expression grew increasingly puzzled. Upgrading to level 6 still required no materials, only 3,000 ghost stones. Was this right? After spending another 3,000 ghost stones to reach level 6, the camp finally had a level 6 cannon tower once more. Chen Fan looked at the divine cannon's panel. I took a deep breath. Something must be wrong. Because the upgrade still required no materials, he just kept going. He spent 10,000 ghost stones to raise the divine cannon to level 10. Chen Fan stood silent, expressionless. The panel appeared before him. The divine cannon has been upgraded to level 10. It has reached max level and cannot be upgraded further. It can enter rampage mode. During rampage mode, fire rate and power are greatly increased, and ghost stone consumption rate doubles. Meanwhile, on his Lundormant Eternal Night Lord's panel, another panel popped up. You have successfully upgraded the building divine cannon to max level. You have obtained the first max level effect. The max level building collection has been lit for the first time. You have obtained a green grade treasure. Lighting up 3 max level buildings will grant a reward of high value. But before he could react, another panel appeared before him. You are the first player on the Eternal Night continent to obtain a max level building. You have successfully triggered the achievement, one step ahead. This achievement greatly increases your movement speed. Within the camp's range, your movement speed is even faster. Chen Fan stood frozen in place, staring at the several panels before him. His expression complex as he gazed into the darkness outside the city. He was slow to react. All aligned, the Eternal Night Lord's panel had only helped him quickly build structures, with the added functions of identifying building blueprints and medical treasures. Beyond that, it had shown no other features, and now he was a bit stunned. The first on the Eternal Night continent. Now it seemed, this world was likely something akin to a gamified world, but the transformation had failed midway, leaving everyone without a player panel. Only he had one. And based on the current situation, he was the only player in this world. Everyone else was an NPC. Chen Fan took a deep breath, trying to calm his emotions as much as possible. After a long silence, he looked at the cannon. The max-level divine cannon, its surface engraved with relief patterns. First, test its power. Chen Fan gazed at the rock walls on both sides of the chasm. The next moment, a deafening roar echoed through the cave. Chen Fan stood beside the Shikigami cannon. His ears were ringing sharply. A cannonball formed from fresh crimson energy, crashed heavily into the rock wall. The rock wall exploded. Countless stone chips and dust sprayed everywhere. When everything settled down, a pit over 10 meters deep had appeared on the rock wall. Such a commotion also startled the others busy in the cave. Chen Fan gazed at the scene before him, silent for a long time, unable to speak. If the Ghost King appeared right now, this one shot would be enough to show the Ghost King what a true divine cannon was. Chen Fan let out a light breath and pulled out from his bosom the item he had obtained in the ancient ruins, that jade whistle. He tossed it in without hesitation. Looking closely, the scene appeared before him again, the image of the northern defense line battle in ancient times. But this time, he let out a light chuckle. The battle at the Seabed Ghost Nest 4 years later might need a different name, changed to the Battle of Expanding Territory for Fan Yu. Then Chen Fan looked at the green medical pack in his hand. This was what he had obtained from the Atlas after lighting up the first max-level building. The green medical pack reward. Medical pack name, Rhythmic Whistle. Item grade, green. Item effect. After blowing the whistle, luck within 3 miles is slightly enhanced. One-time use, no lingering effect. He quickly blew the whistle. The moment the sound rang out, the whistle shattered, turning into a pale green light that coiled around him. His luck received a slight boost. Then, he quickly took the newly obtained enhancement stone and smashed it onto the city wall beneath him, consuming 1,000 ghost stones. He directly raised this 1 meter section of level 3 city wall to level 4. The panel appeared before him, City wall upgraded to level 4. Increase sturdiness. Please choose an upgrade direction. 1. Possesses slow self-repair capability, equivalent to 1/5 of a vine pattern wall. Enhanced deterrent effect. In the eyes of creatures, this wall feels more intimidating. Quality change. Gain a random and 1 grade higher quality change direction. Normal. The next moment, before Chen Fan could react, the panel began to change continuously, starting a quality change. Quality change complete. Quality change. 10,000 mile line wall. All walls connected to this wall will take effect. This quality change effect. The city wall will be like a long dragon, able to move freely within the camp range. Legendary. Chen Fan stood silently in place, expressionless. He suddenly felt that when enhancing with a rhythmic whistle, the combined synergy of these two medical packs might be a bit too overpowered. If during enhancement, the upgrade direction obtained happens to be a quality change, gaining a random and 1 grade higher quality change direction. Normal. Then within the time of the 3-mile luck boost, it was possible for the current situation to occur, rising all the way until a legendary quality plaque appeared. This was the first time he had seen such a grade of upgrade direction, and this was his first legendary quality plaque. He had to protect it well. If the car key broke, he would definitely want to hang himself from the southeast tree. Tempest. Nightfall soon arrived. Eternal night shrouded the entire continent. Fang Yu, such a rampant force, could the name be an ancient power? Remnants. In the darkness, a shadow sat on a throne. His crimson pupils flickered continuously, one hand propping up his chin, deep in thought. Ever since the Ghost King he had just taken and died, the Jiangbei wasteland. These past days, he had been sending ghost spies to scout for information about Fan Yu and Jiangbei, and had learned some general details. Just then, from the depths of the dark hall, a voice came, King, when the next rainy season comes, I will lead the team personally to Jiangbei, and wipe out Fan Yu in one fell swoop. The shadow on the throne quietly rejected this suggestion. This Fan Yu is somewhat strange, rising during this rainy season. In less than a month, they built over 100 cannon towers. This productivity clearly far exceeds that of an ordinary architect. Most likely inherited some treasure. Jiangbei was a major battlefield in ancient times. It's normal for something to be left behind. Don't let your guard down. Moreover, you're a bit stronger than that dead guy, but not by much. If you go, you might die too. That one's lingering aura won't last more than a few years. We must prepare everything within these few years. Otherwise, once the ghost nest from the seabed lands, the consequences will be unacceptable to both of us. Saying this, the shadow on the throne, he couldn't help but let out a light sigh. That is a true ghost nest. Only after a long silence did the true ghost speak hoarsely. We've lingered near Jiangbei for so long, with only one goal in mind. That is, after that one's lingering aura fades, and before the seabed ghost nest prepares to land, we will be the first to land in Jiangbei. Along the way, seize the heavenly Dao's blessing from all living beings in Jiangbei. Next, do 2 things. First, find a way to send word to Fan Yu. Tell Fan Yu that in a few years, a ghost nest will land from the seabed. Make some oracle bones and remnant leaves as before and send them over. Once Fan Yu learns of this, they should take the initiative to withdraw. It's best to resolve this without mobilizing troops. I see Fan Yu differently. If they don't plan to withdraw, and intend to hold Jiangbei to the death, then we can't leave them too much time to develop. This faction's rise is too fast. Next time, we'll temporarily go all out to destroy Fan Yu. As long as we obtain the heavenly Dao's blessing 4 years from now, we'll barely qualify to join the main battlefield. In a corner of the eternal night continent, surrounded by darkness, a middle-aged man sitting cross-legged on the spot, slowly opened his eyes, gazing into the distance toward Jiangbei. He murmured somewhat dazedly. He vaguely sensed that his own aura was nearly spent. At most, 4 more years, and Jiangbei will lose all its defenses. He had been trapped here for 37 years. In 4 years, he definitely couldn't make it back. Jiangbei is the largest defensive line behind the Eternal Night continent, stretching 170 kilometers in total. The coast has no natural defenses. Once it falls, the ghost nest will surge from Jiangbei into Jiangnan, ravaging the flat Guanti plain. But he remained silent for a long time. Just then, an old crocodile lying at his left foot suddenly spoke in human tongue. If we can't go back, is Zyro Hua doomed to die? He should run. The man sitting cross-legged shook his head. The heaven-seeking formation I set up when I left should have already matured the snow lotus I cultivated. Even if he takes it and recovers, with the strength of an adult devouring sky crocodile, he can run anytime in these few years. As long as he doesn't stubbornly stay put, he won't die. Another crocodile lying at his foot also spoke in human tongue, but its voice carried some complaint. I told you it wasn't the right time back then. If you wanted to kill, you insisted on coming. What are you saying? The left crocodile said somewhat dissatisfied. It was so boring back then. With nothing to do, how could I not be reckless a few times? The boss went the whole time without finding a woman, just being reckless a few times. He used his own hand to do it. We all saw it. Then, The man who had been sitting cross-legged, suddenly, at some point, stood up and stamped one foot, crushing the reckless crocodile's head into the ground, cracking the earth around with countless fissures. Expressionless, he coldly said, "I'm starting to regret letting you speak human tongue. How about I just rip out your tongue? What do you think?" Just then, that one, from the darkness came a lazy and casual voice, still unwilling to talk. "I only need one answer from you, and I'll let you out immediately. Why bother? Even if we win, someone like you, we can't kill you anyway. What do a few ants dying have to do with you? After all, you won't die." The man slowly withdrew his foot, looked up toward the sky above, and after a long pause in the darkness, suddenly, I smiled. Maintaining this grand formation must have consumed quite a bit, right? It has already lasted 37 years. I wonder how many more years you can hold on. I have memorized your voice. Once I break this formation and get out, are you ready to receive my visit? After a long silence in the darkness, he finally spoke again. But the confidence in his voice had clearly weakened. "I didn't send anyone to Janbei. Even if you get out, you can only kill me. You cannot kill my son. I didn't threaten you with Janbei. You know it's not easy for us ghost houses to have a child. This is our deal. Otherwise, Janbei wouldn't have lasted until the seabed ghost nest landed. Of course, I've always remembered this deal. At some unknown point, some ghost houses awaken intelligence. The moment they gain wisdom, they no longer wish to be lumped together with those paper, bloodthirsty ghost houses. They began to imitate human culture, imitate human naming, imitate human inheritance, and called themselves the Ghost Clan. They believed themselves to be the masters of heaven and earth. But intelligent ghost creatures are extremely difficult to reproduce. Yet bearing offspring for intelligent ghost creatures is a way to pass on their own life. Just like humans, they yearn deeply for human culture, only they don't want to remain active solely in the night. They also wish, like humans, to live on land during the day, and truly become a clan of the eternal night continent. To achieve this, one prerequisite is to eliminate all humans on the eternal night continent. Only when the races on this continent are completely wiped out will they gain the recognition of the heavenly Dao and become the official ghost clan. This has been the dream of countless ghosts over the years. Let me tell you something. The voice came again from the darkness. Over the years, the frontline battlefield has advanced smoothly. You won't be able to hold it much longer. Perhaps I won't live to see the day the ghost clan officially lands, but my child will. He will inherit my glory. The man let out a scornful laugh and said no more. What's the boss thinking? After a long while, the crocodile sidled up to his feet again and asked in a low voice. The man let out a long sigh. He pulled a roll of bamboo slips from his bosom and spread it on the ground. I left in such a hurry back then. A few bamboo slips from the diary at Wuming Mountain were missing. I'm worried someone might see them. What's there to worry about? A diary, of course you'd worry about someone reading it. Even if they see it, it's fine. Janbei will fall in 4 years. Whoever sees it will die anyway. The man's face was expressionless. Looking up, before him were two lantern-sized, adorably dull eyes. You know, the thing I regret most in my life is teaching you to speak human language. Hear that? The one on the right, clearly a female crocodile, roared angrily. The boss is sick of you. And you? The man turned to look at the crocodile that had spoken. Expressionless, he said, when you two are charging into battle, if you dare imitate a human cry again, I'll rip your tongue out too. Dawn broke. Chen Fan stretched lazily and walked out of the cave. Standing outside the city wall, he looked up at the sun pouring down. Another bright, clear day today. Last night, no ghost creatures attacked the camp. Neither Fei nor Jai Lai saw any ghost creatures assaulting the ghost fire. Today, his task was to spend. He had accumulated quite a few ghost stones over these days. Originally, he planned to save enough ghost stones to build a 170-kilometer-long Jangbei defense line in one go. But now, there's no need to save. With the legendary blueprint upgrade direction of the Great Wall, he could build a level with each ghost stone slowly accumulating until he reached 170 kilometers. His gaze settled on the inner wall, the one bearing the legendary blueprint direction of the Great Wall. He needed to raise this wall's level first, ensuring it wouldn't be destroyed. After consuming 2,000 ghost stones, the wall quickly rose to level 5. At level 5, the wall's sturdiness increased. Please choose an upgrade direction. 1. In thunderstorm weather, the wall's sturdiness increased to a certain degree. 2nd, in darkness, sturdiness increased slightly. 3rd, no living being could pass unless the wall was destroyed. Unable to fly over the city wall, after Chen Fan saw this upgrade panel, a phrase suddenly popped into his mind. Quick hands, selected all 3. He wanted all 3 upgrade directions. Though they weren't qualitative transformation upgrades, all 3 were very useful to him. The first one went without saying. It specifically increased the intensity of the rainy season. The second was also excellent. The city wall already took effect in darkness, equivalent to a permanent passive effect. Both were excellent, but compared to the third, they fell short. Continue upgrading. Chen Fan, brimming with excitement, consumed another 5,000 ghost stones, raising this city wall to level 6. Another panel appeared before him. City wall upgraded to level 6, with increased durability. Please choose an upgrade direction. 1. City wall can self-destruct and unleash tremendous power. Tower depends on the wall's durability and level. 2. Enemies attacking the city wall at close range have a low chance of suffering damage reflection. 3. Enemies attacking the city wall from a distance will deal reduced damage to the wall. All 3 directions were decent. He immediately rejected the first one, though, if he chose this effect for every meter of the wall, the 170-kilometer-long Janbei defense line exploding at once, that scene would certainly be spectacular, but he didn't want to see that date. The second direction was also unnecessary. He had thorny counter-armor. This qualitative transformation direction was better than the second. Not only melee, but range damage could also be partially reflected. Only the third remained. After finalizing the third direction, he looked at the panel and let out a long sigh. What he feared most had indeed happened. Upgrading the city wall from level 6 to level 7 required consuming 7,000 ghost stones, and one of the heavenly treasures like monkey head fruit, or earth core fruit. Those stones were manageable, but those heavenly treasures gave him a headache just seeing them. The Janbei defense line was 170 kilometers, that is, 170,000 meters. This meant upgrading every meter of the wall would require the equivalent of 170,000 monkey head fruits. That many monkey head fruits could only be found at the mountain of flowers and fruit. Those were heavenly treasures. Within 10 years, he couldn't possibly build a 170-kilometer-long level 7 city wall. That would cost him his life. After finishing all this, Chen Fan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now, this one made a city wall with a great wall. Legendary qualitative transformation upgrade direction had been raised to level 6, far surpassing the other city walls. He was safe this time, as long as the ghost fire never went out. This city wall could not be destroyed. Then he crouched down, picked up a twig and began calculating in the dust on the ground. The Janbei defense line spanned 170 kilometers, plus some turrets, and the cost of ghost fire copper pipes. Total construction cost was roughly within 400 million ghost stones. Definitely enough. Chen Fan crouched on the ground, sketching with a twig. 400 million ghost stones was no small sum. To achieve this, the wuxia plane had to swallow up smaller forces, countless as stars, using skeletons and horses cost-effective goods to plunder ghost stones. As for major powers like the immortal slaying sacred land, he would go door to door demanding protection fees. Those who didn't pay would be annihilated. That should be enough. He felt this protection fee collection was perfectly justified. If he weren't standing in front, you'd all be dead. But for now, he needed to figure out the Great Wall sooner. The city wall will be like a long dragon, able to move freely within the camp range. Legendary, he could first set up a 1 kilometer-long one cave at the entrance. This 21-meter-long city wall was currently level 6. The rest were level 3. He hadn't upgraded the subsequent walls, planning to practice controlling the city wall first. Chen Fan's controlled city wall writhed like a dragon, rushing wildly through the camp. Its speed wasn't fast, a bit slower than a skeleton horse. Move it. It leaves a long trail on the ground as it moves. The soil is churned up, as if it had just been plowed. This thing is definitely a master at plowing the ground. Then he stood at the very front of this section of the wall. He clasped his hands behind his back, lit the 20 ghost fires placed within the canyon. With a cold expression, he gazed into the distance at the horizon. Below him, the wall stretched like a long dragon, racing swiftly toward the canyon entrance. The wind howled past his ears. At that moment, he felt incredibly cool. Compared to flying on a sword, he felt he was even cooler. At least his intimidation factor was greater. Soon, the long dragon stopped at the canyon entrance. Beyond the canyon was no longer within the camp's territory. The long dragon couldn't go out. He quickly jogged to one end of the long dragon, once again standing at the very front, both hands gripping the jade staff. With a cold expression, he loped toward the camp. The long dragon once again sped forward. After several back-and-forth trips, he finally had his fill of fun. Awesome. Chen Fan stuffed the city wall back into the entrance of Cave No. 1, letting out a hearty laugh. After he finished experimenting with how to control the Great Wall, when he went out, his first appearance on the wuxia plane would be like this. To the native architects of the wuxia plane, he would bring a little shock. Let them witness what a legendary transformation was. Upgrade direction. 10 gradually reached afternoon. About an hour until nightfall. Chen Fan sat on a stool atop the city wall. Before him, on the table were 3 plates of dumplings and a bowl of soup dumplings. It was winter. The temperature was dropping lower and lower. The perfect food for winter was dumplings. 3 types of dumpling fillings were a must. Just then, the bow-shaped talisman in his bosom suddenly grew warm. He picked it up, and Zhu Mo's voice came through. Prison master, something's happened. Cold on. Chen Fan let out a light sigh, cutting off Zhu Mo's words. He stood up weakly and waved his hand. The maidservant stationed below the wall quickly stepped forward, cleared away the bowls and chopsticks. Speak. A ghost man infiltrated Fan City. The guarding members of the breeding division discovered a flaw. Chen Fan's brow furrowed slightly, but he said nothing, waiting instead. Was the loss great? We suffered no losses. I discovered it in time and controlled the situation. There is only one merchant guild from the Xianxia faction. Was blown up by that ghost man. One person. It's mostly being dealt with. The main thing is that ghost man dropped some items. I think you might need to see them, prison master. I was about to return to camp to report in person. Wait for me. I'm on my way back. A moment later, Chen Fan descended from the 9-5 dragon carriage. He looked at Zhu Mo, who was waiting for him at the city gate. Zhu Mo handed over an ancient text fragment that had fallen from the ghost man's body. Chen Fan narrowed his eyes slightly. The information recorded on this ancient text fragment is simple. 4 years from now, the ghost nest will land. North of the river will be barren. But his expression gradually turned strange. How was this recorded? The prophecy of the ghost nest landing in 4 years is because the aura left behind in the north of the river will disappear in 4 years, so the ghost nest will land. This ancient text fragment vaguely gave him a feeling of being artificially forged. The ancient text gave off a smell of being dug from the soil. It looked like it had been around for a while. End of the 382nd year of the Eternal Night calendar. North of the river, the nether ghost nest is unceasing, recorded as great calamity. The end of the 382nd year of Eternal Night was 4 years from now. Chen Fan looked at the piece of parchment in his hand, remained silent for a long time, expressionless, suddenly couldn't help but laugh. He suddenly realized his enemy might not be very smart. Everyone knows that the Eternal Night descended 378 years ago, but the more hidden information is that, over 8,000 years ago, there was already one Eternal Night descent. All the supplements obtained now are basically assumed to be left over from that great war over 8,000 years ago, and the term Eternal Night calendar was clearly only coined in recent years. How could someone who left behind an ancient text over 8,000 years ago have known about it? The timelines don't match at all. Can't they put more effort into forging ancient texts? Chen Fan let out a long sigh. Still, one piece of information can be gleaned from this. That is, a group of ghost houses has its eyes on him. For now, this matter has come to a close. Chen Fan returned to the camp. He walked up to the fortune pavilion and pulled out some sea moss from his bosom. Currently, only 2 buildings in the camp required sea moss for upgrades. One was a fortune pavilion. The other was a weather pavilion. He felt it wasn't worth using on the weather pavilion. The next moment, after consuming 5,000 ghost stones, he upgraded the fortune pavilion to level 5. A brand new panel appeared before him. Fortune pavilion upgraded to level 5. Please choose an upgrade direction. 1. Cultivation speed increased to 15 times. Current limit, 10 times. 2. Comprehension speed increased to 15 times. Current limit, 10 times. 3. Enlightenment probability slightly increased. A flicker of surprise crossed Chen Fan's eyes, mainly because he noticed that upgrading to level 6 required no materials at all. Just 10,000 ghost stones, that's all. Without hesitation, he immediately chose the first option. Increase cultivation speed. This had the highest priority. Without pausing, he continued upgrading to level 6. Chen Fan looked at the panel that popped up before him. His expression gradually turned strange. He chose the cultivation speed upgrade direction again. This time, too, no materials were needed. Then, Chen Fan upgraded the white building, the fortune pavilion, all the way to level 10. In other words, max level. The final panel appeared before him. Fortune pavilion has been upgraded to level 10. Has reached max level. Cannot be upgraded further. Max level effect obtained. Innate gift. All cultivators who break through a major realm within the fortune pavilion will receive a certain degree of blessing and support. For example, when a 99% pure body breaks through to Martial King, it automatically becomes a 100% pure body. Chen Fan stared at the effect before him, slightly stunned. Isn't the fortune pavilion's max level effect a bit too exaggerated? With this effect, he could mass-produce Martial Kings with 100% pure bodies. He silently closed the panel. He looked at Zheng Pen and at Kyler, who was sitting in the fortune pavilion with eyes closed in cultivation. Suddenly, he felt a bit sorry for that guy. If that guy had just waited to break through to Martial King, he wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Then, he followed the same method. He upgraded the Life Skills Workshop all the way to level 10. Another panel appeared before him. Life Skills Workshop has been upgraded to level 10. Has reached max level. Cannot be upgraded further. Max level effect obtained. Skillful Artisan's Touch. Items produced by this Life Skills Workshop, upon completion, have a low chance of gaining a special effect. Chen Fan clicked his tongue in surprise. For now, this max level effect wasn't as good as the max level effects of the Divine Cannon or the Fortune Pavilion. But after upgrading 2 panels, a slight change occurred, and the Eternal Night Lord panel The Fortune Pavilion and Life Skills Workshop icons were now lit. Building Atlas, 3 max level buildings lit. Obtained a yellow braid lucky bag. Light up 5 max level buildings. Will grant a reward of high value. After that, a golden lucky bag fell before him. He picked it up. Item name, lucky bag. Item grade, yellow. Item effect, upon opening, 50% chance to obtain a yellow braid. Unusual item, 30% chance to obtain a yellow braid. Rare material, 10% chance to obtain a yellow braid. Building blueprint, 9.5% chance to obtain a yellow braid artifact. 0.5% chance to obtain other items. Chen Fan stood expressionless in silence. He stood there in silence for a long time. When he first lit up a building atlas, he was given a green grade unusual item, Lucky Hand. Using it temporarily boosts luck for a short time. He should have saved it for later. That way, it would have been most valuable here. He let out a long breath. He had no intention of opening this lucky bag. He would wait until he obtained another item like the Lucky Hand. Then he would open it. He then upgraded the Forge and the Farmland to max level. A new panel appeared before him. Building Atlas, 5 max level buildings lit. Obtained a yellow braid Heavenly Dao Stone. Light up 10 max level buildings. Will grant a reward of high value. Heavenly Dao Stone sounds like a very powerful item. His expression faintly showed anticipation as he looked at the information and the Eternal Night Lord panel. He clicked to claim it. Soon, white lines formed before him again, and condensed into a stone that fell from the air. Item name, Heavenly Dao Stone. Item grade, yellow. Its effect, when used on any building, it grants that building a Heavenly Dao blessing effect, which can also take effect on all buildings of the same type onto the camp. Chen Fan couldn't help but grin. Good stuff, truly good stuff. Although it was only of yellow grade, he felt it could already rival blue grade items. Currently, the camp had 5 max level buildings. The Divine Cannon, Farmland, Transport Pavilion, Living Quarters, and defense structures, no doubt about it. Without any hesitation, he slapped the Heavenly Dao Stone in his hand onto the max level Divine Cannon beside him. Soon, a panel floated before him. You have used the Heavenly Dao Stone on the Divine Cannon. Obtain 3 Heavenly Dao blessing effects. Please choose one within 100 breaths. Each building can only have 1 Heavenly Dao blessing. Effect 1, Heavenly Dao blessing or inspiring might. The Divine Cannon's power will be greatly enhanced. Effect 2, Heavenly Dao blessing sweeping through thousands of troops. After the Divine Cannon kills an enemy, the excess damage will extend to nearby enemies until the damage is exhausted. Effect 3, Heavenly Dao blessing Child of the Tower. The Divine Cannon will have the same defense as the wall it stands on. Chen Fan slowly sat down in his rocking chair, his eyes gleaming with golden light as he looked at the 3 Heavenly Dao blessing effects. All he could say was, awesome. Any one of these 3 effects, taken out on its own, is a top-tier effect. He wanted all 3, but soon he ruled out the 3rd. Although it meant the Divine Cannon would be nearly indestructible, a cannon tower's most important trait wasn't defense. It could be destroyed, but before that, it had to deliver results. The first was also strong, but his gaze lingered on the second, and his breathing grew rapid. The excess damage can extend. This means when the Ghost Nest lands 4 years from now, in the 170-kilometer Janbei defense line, the moment 1,700 Divine Cannons fire simultaneously, the extended damage will be enough to clear a vast area of enemies. Not a single one will slip through. The Divine Cannon was originally a single target tower, mainly used for bosses and elites. Its damage was completely wasted on overkill. Each shot consumed no small amount of ghost energy, but with this Heavenly Dao blessing effect, it could handle both single targets and groups. It was practically a super sword tower. He hadn't chosen yet, but then, without hesitation, he selected the second, Heavenly Dao blessing sweeping through thousands of troops. After doing this, Chen Fan arrived at Fan City, ready to hear Wang Qi's report. Just then, Lord Chen. A greeting came from behind. Chen Fan turned to look, and saw 3 people in sect disciple robes, looking at him with respectful expressions. I remember you. Somewhat familiar. Chen Fan nodded thoughtfully. These people should be from the World Pavilion. Back then, he went to Janbei to handle the Janbei Chen family matter. Shi Jiangyue was involved. But I don't know what they want with me now. Greetings, Lord Chen. The leading young man clasped his hands, said respectfully, my name is Tang Kai, a direct disciple of the Jianin World Pavilion. I had the honor of seeing you in Janbei City last time, Lord Chen. Chen Fan nodded. He remembered a woman in a white dress from before, who had some hostility toward him, but she wasn't here this time. It seemed the World Pavilion was approaching with friendly intent. It's like this, Lord Chen. I took a deep breath, suppressing the turmoil in his heart, trying to stay calm. The annual Architect Exchange Conference is about to begin. This time, it's hosted by our World Pavilion's headquarters, gathering renowned architects from Janbei, Xianxia, Jiandeng, and Jianan 4 regions. is an architect who single-handedly built Fan City. Lord Chen has unique skills and understanding of architecture. We would like to invite you to this assembly. Without any hesitation, Chen Fan immediately refused. He wasn't an architect. What kind of assembly is that? What is there to exchange? Lord Chen, please don't refuse so quickly. Tang Kai, seeing this, hurriedly spoke up. In the past, the architects' assembly was always held within the sphere of influence of the leading faction. For example, this year it was supposed to be in the territory of the Xianxia Pavilion. But the Xianxia Pavilion wishes to hold this year's Architects Exchange Assembly in Fan City. Besides inviting you to attend, we also wish to ask if we may borrow Fan City as the venue for the Architects Exchange Assembly. That can be arranged. Chen Fan suddenly laughed. No problem, I welcome everyone to exchange ideas in Fan City. He didn't know what these architects would discuss, but he knew it would surely draw a crowd and bring many architectural blueprints. This was beneficial to him, as long as he didn't have to leave this area. Chen Fan smiled and looked at Tang Kai. When will it begin? 3 days from now, Tang Kai replied with a respectful expression. He hadn't expected things to go so smoothly. All right, go ahead. Time quickly passed and 3 days later arrived. On this date, many factions came to Fan City. Fan City became livelier than ever before. This city doesn't look like much, does it? A young man stood before a convoy, gazing at the city wall not far away. These look like first-grade city walls. Isn't Fan Yu supposed to be very strong? The young man curled his lips. In our faction, the city walls are all third-grade. First-grade walls have long been obsolete. You can't say that. An old man beside him shook his head with a serious expression. Fan Yu certainly has strength, but after all, their foundation is a bit shallow. Think about it. Fan Yu rose to power during the rainy season. From its founding to now, only a few months have passed. Less than 3 months. To have achieved this much is already impressive. Moreover, Fan Yu's main stronghold is in the nameless mountains nearby. It was from that stronghold that they slew the Ghost King and the young master of the dance sect during the rainy season. Fan City is merely Fan Yu's mortal city, used for commerce. It is not the main structure for defending against ghost dwellings during the rainy season. To have reached this level is already quite good. The old man looked seriously at the young man beside him. Put away that flippant tone of yours. When you have the chance to meet Lord Chen, do not speak to him in such a manner. I know, the young man muttered with a pout. I certainly won't say that to his face. But if I mutter it quietly, he can't possibly hear me, can he? Soon, one faction after another arrived in Fan City. Chen Fan, accompanied by Kuahu, worked through Fan City. He had specially cleared an open space to prepare for this architects' assembly. Soon, the architects' assembly began. There were no competitions, no contests among them. It was all about exchange. A moment later, Chen Fan raised an eyebrow slightly and walked into the crowd ahead. He looked at the stage, where an architect was sharing his experience. A large crowd had gathered here, numbering over 100 people. Not counting attendance, there were more than 30 architects standing on the stage. The one sharing his experience was an old man. Every time he mentioned a key point, the architects below nodded thoughtfully. Soon, the old man stepped down, and another middle-aged architect and an old jade artisan stepped up to share. The audience below nodded thoughtfully again, clearly having gained much. Just then, the old jade artisan suddenly looked at Chen Fan. Lord Chen has been listening here for quite a while. Would you be willing to come up and share your insights on architecture? As the words fell, everyone followed the old man's gaze, and only then realized that Chen Fan, the master of Fan City, had been sitting among them, listening for a long time. Instantly, a crowd of expectant eyes turned to Lord Chen. Say a few words, just share a little something. Chen Fan stood still for a moment, then, kicking nodded and stepped forward. Then I'll say a few words. After that, Kai leaned on his emerald-handled staff and walked toward the stage. Chen Fan stood on the stage, his gaze sweeping across each face in the crowd below. He said softly, what I will speak of today has nothing to do with memory. It concerns the greatest situation. I believe that the forces attending this architect exchange conference today are all renowned major powers from the 4 regions of Jiangbei. You must have in your hands some architectural blueprints that you cannot fully comprehend. Bring them to Fan Yu and hand them over to me. Let me comprehend them. My method of comprehension is rather unique. It will damage the architectural blueprints. As a token of gratitude, I will personally travel to your territories and, within your domains, construct a building based on that blueprint. Do you see that tower over there? Chen Fan pointed to the pillar piercing the sky on Nameless Mountain. Everyone's gaze followed. A pillar hundreds of meters tall soared into the clouds. In truth, before anyone had even entered Fan City, while still traveling across the wilderness, they had already seen this tower, standing atop Nameless Mountain from afar. Yet, by unspoken agreement, no one had mentioned it. After all, Nameless Mountain was Fan Yu's territory, and that tower might well be some kind of foundational building. The secret of Fan Yu, bringing it up rashly would feel like prying into Fan Yu's secrets. That would hardly be a good thing. Now that Chen Fan had brought it up himself, the curiosity everyone had suppressed surged forth once more. That is the heaven-piecing pillar. Chen Fan's voice slowly rang out. A yellow-grade building with unfathomable power. As for its specific capabilities, perhaps only when ghostly abodes besiege Fanyu will you come to know. Once there was an ancient architect who, in his entire life, never fully comprehended the blueprint of the heaven-piecing pillar. I was fortunate enough to obtain that blueprint. In 3 days, I comprehended and completed its construction. His greatest regret before death was failing to understand that blueprint. I think you wouldn't want to die with such regret. Many of your leaders likely possess a blueprint they've studied for a long time, but still haven't grasped. Hand them to me, I'll comprehend them for you. Of course, the specific blueprints will be reviewed by Fanyu's designated personnel. Blueprints with no value for comprehension will not be accepted by Fanyu. With that, Chen Fan did not linger. Instead, he turned and left, disappearing straight into the crowd. This idea had come to him when he overheard those few youths discussing the comprehension of architectural blueprints. It had surged into his mind then. Among these architects, who could say that someone might not be hiding a high-grade blueprint, but they had never been able to comprehend it. If they could bring it to Fanyu's development would accelerate. Chen Fan had already worked far away, but the audience remained silent. Everyone was quiet, not a word spoken, exchanging glances, seeing the stirring in each other's eyes. It was not what anyone had expected. They had thought that Chen Fan might be unwilling to share any core techniques of architecture and would only say something vague to brush them off, or perhaps genuinely share some architectural tips. Unexpectedly, Chen Fan said nothing at all. He only made a suggestion, or rather a proposal. Hand over the blueprints for him to comprehend is a token of gratitude, and he would personally go to their territories to construct a building corresponding to that blueprint. The master of Xianxia Pavilion frowned deeply, standing still in contemplation, silent for a long time. He had in his possession a blueprint that he had never fully comprehended after all these years. If Lord Chen Yu truly could comprehend it completely and was willing to build such a structure within Xianxia Pavilion's territory, then even if the blueprint were destroyed, it wouldn't matter. After all, the building would already exist. He could work into the building and carefully examine every detail of its construction, so that in the future he could replicate it with ease. This proposal was nothing but beneficial to him, with no downsides. The only drawback was that it would make the propagation stronger. The pavilion master of the All Heavens Pavilion looked around, nodded thoughtfully, and said nothing. He could see that quite a few people were stirred. Soon another person stepped up to share, but this time, everyone listened half-heartedly, clearly still dwelling on the proposal just made by Master Chen. Young Master, by then, Chen Fan had already left the Architects' Exchange Assembly and was heading toward the Tao Fan Jade Camp. Seated on the 95 Dragon carriage, the lame Marquis, in the driver's seat, sounded uncertain. Young Master, do you think they'll agree? Inside the carriage, Chen Fan replied casually, from what I've observed, when these architects construct buildings, they don't need architectural blueprints. Building blueprint, to assist architects in understanding a structure, but I'm different. To build, I must crush the blueprint and absorb it into the Eternal Night Lord panel. So, in truth, there's no conflict between us. These factions hand me their blueprints. I go to their territory, build a corresponding structure, and let them slowly comprehend it. Once they've fully understood, even without the original blueprint, their architects can still construct such a building. It's a win-win outcome, but in truth, many people don't like win-win. They prefer win-lose. So, I'm not sure how many will accept this proposal, but I'm certain some will. Soon, the 95 Dragon carriage did not enter the canyon, but instead drove up Nameless Mountain, stopping beneath the heaven-piecing pillar. The lame Marquis stayed where he was, while Chen Fan alone went to the heaven-piecing pillar, to the platform at its very top. Standing at the center, he gazed far into the distance at the mortal world below. No city wall could be built atop the heaven-piecing pillar, otherwise, enclosing the platform's edge with a wall would make for an excellent viewing terrace. Just then, the sound talisman in his bosom suddenly grew warm, and the lame Marquis's voice came through. Young Master, news has arrived from Fan City. The pavilion master of the All Heavens Pavilion wishes to offer a building blueprint for you to comprehend. Got it? Chen Fan smiled. Not bad. My words bore fruit. I'll come down now and head back to Fan City. Inside a shop in Fan City, Chen Fan sat at a table facing the elderly man before him, the pavilion master of the All Heavens Pavilion. I've long heard of your fame. Meeting you today, I see you are truly extraordinary. The old man across from Master Chen Yu smiled somewhat helplessly. In front of you, there's no need for such torque, but there is one thing I'm curious about. Master Chen Yu, what grade of architect are you? It seems you've never made it public. Chen Fan didn't answer immediately, only smiled. A bit higher than you. What grade of architect was he? He wasn't an architect at all. Normally, he should be a second rank cultivator, not yet having broken through to third rank. The old man wasn't too surprised by this, though he didn't know exactly what grade Master Chen Yu was. He was certain it was higher than his own. Without further beating around the bush, he solemnly took out a blueprint from his bosom, building blueprint, and placed it on the table. Master Chen Yu, your proposal truly moved me. I know that comprehending a building blueprint consumes immense time, mental energy, and ghost stones. You're willing to help everyone comprehend the blueprints. That's a grand vision. I've spent 37 years trying to comprehend this blueprint, and I was about to give up, but thinking of all the time, effort, and ghost stones I've poured into it, if I gave up now, everything I've invested would be wasted. I can no longer let it go. Now I'm 78 years old, with only a few years left to live. If I die without having fully comprehended it, that would be my greatest regret before death. I wonder, Master Chen Yu, does this blueprint catch your interest? Let me have a look. Chen Fan took the blueprint. His heart skipped a beat. He pretended to look up and down, but in truth, he was only staring at the panel before him. The first blueprint was called the Soul Sculpture. Item grade, yellow. This sculpture-type building blueprint, once placed within the camp, would provide a buff effect to camp members. After setting it up, Chen Fan frowned and said, "This building is quite complex. Comprehending it will take some mental effort, and it will consume a fair amount of my ghost food. I won't know the specifics until I return to the camp, but I should be able to finish comprehending it within 3 days. If you're not in a hurry, you can wait for me in Fanyu for 3 days. In 3 days, I'll give you an answer. If the comprehension fails, the building blueprint will be returned as is." Good, the old man nodded. He let out a long sigh of relief before standing up, his expression turning serious as he looked at Chen Fan. "Then I'll leave it to you, Lord Chen Yu. If this building blueprint structure can truly be brought to life, then even if I die in this life, I'll have no regrets." With that, he turned and left. Chen Fan watched the retreating figure of the Xianxia pavilion master, and a smile he could barely suppress crept onto his face. So this is the benefit of fame. Fame is a double-edged sword. It has its downsides, but it also has its perks. With the Xianxia pavilion master taking the lead, many factions soon offered up their own building blueprints. After filtering out some useful ones, Chen Fan let out a light sigh, then crushed all the building blueprints, absorbing them into the Eternal Night Lord panel. He planned to return to the camp and try building them, to see their effects. What exactly are the effects? You only know after building them. The panel doesn't show them very clearly. The building exchange conference lasted 3 days. The first day was about to end. As dusk fell, the architects each retired to their inns. Chen Fan, meanwhile, had already returned to the Fanyu camp, sitting atop the city wall, gazing at, and the Eternal Night Lord panel. The available building option was the Soul Sculpture, cost 100 ghost stones. Once built and placed in the camp, camp members within a 100-meter radius of the sculpture would have their stamina recovery speed slightly increased. Chen Fan hesitated as he looked at the sculpture placed inside the cave. The effect, how should I put it? Not bad whether for work or for defense. It has a good effect. But is this really the effect the yellow tier building should have? It feels a bit unworthy of the yellow tier, but it's cheap. 100 ghost stones per piece. What more could you ask for? Let's try upgrading it. Upgrading to level 2 required no materials, just 300 ghost stones. For yellow tier building, the ghost stone cost for upgrading was indeed low. The soul sculpture upgraded to level 2. Please choose an upgrade direction. 1. Camp members within a 100-meter radius of the sculpture, stamina recovery speed slightly increased. 2. For camp members within a 100-meter radius, the tech-type buildings will have their ghost stone consumption slightly reduced. 3. For camp members within a 100-meter radius, cultivation speed slightly increased, and so on. Chen Fan chuckled lightly, suddenly realizing that this soul sculpture, which seemed like such an ordinary building, why was it a yellow tier building? In his past life, he had played a game where one class, the highest and most noble, was a priest. Its effect was simple. In battle, it stayed at the back, applying various buffs to the teammates ahead. And this soul sculpture was exactly that. This isn't a sculpture at all. It's just a stationary priest. Each level up gave 1 buff. If it reached level 10, that would be 10 buffs. If all were chosen to enhance camp members' strength, then it could completely boost an average Fanyu member's combat power significantly. For defending a city, it would be absolutely perfect. At the base of the city wall, every 100 meters, one would be placed. He immediately chose the second option. The attack-type buildings placed near the sculpture would have their ghost stone consumption slightly reduced. As for the camp members' recovery shop and training speed, he already had corresponding buildings for those. There was no need for this sculpture at all. He spent another 500 ghost stones, leveling up to level 3. The 3 upgrade paths remained exactly the same, unchanged. He chose the second option again, continuing until it reached level 4. At level 5, it couldn't go any further. It wasn't that materials were suddenly required. Rather, the soul trial sculpture had already reached level 5. It had reached its maximum level and could not be upgraded further. Since every upgrade path had consistently chosen the second option, he obtained the corresponding max level effect. Meticulous calculation. For attack-type buildings placed within the sculpture's range, ghost stone consumption would be reduced once again. Chen Fan stared at the panel before him, frozen in place. Level 5 max, a yellow braid building. These words combined felt so unfamiliar. It was the first time he had seen a building with such a low max level, and yet it was a yellow braid building. And it was truly cheap. A max-level soul trial sculpture cost only 2,600 ghost stones. As for the effects, well, the panel's descriptions were all vague, slightly reduced once again. The exact numbers required testing. The testing method was simple. After the sword tower reached level 5, its power increased dramatically. A level 3 sword tower activated the active still sword and storm. Only one ghost stone. As for the level 5 cannon tower, activated the active still sword and storm. It cost 50 ghost stones. The next moment, a level 5 cannon tower placed on the city wall at his feet was suddenly lit up. Sword and storm activated. Beams of light shot into the sky in unison, landing precisely in the distance. Dust kicked up from the ground in bursts. It consumed 30 ghost stones. Good heavens, Chen Fan muttered, staring intently at the detailed data on the panel before him. Originally, it required 50 ghost stones. Now it only consumed 30. That meant ghost stone consumption had been reduced by 40%. This was an astonishing number. According to his plan, along the 170-kilometer Janbei defense line, a large number of cannon towers needed to be placed, and these towers were by no means a mere 100.